Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. I'd like to first start out with thanking Jennifer Trahan for setting up the council agenda and sending notifications out to us. I'd also like to thank Elizabeth and Xavier from IT for helping us get set up. And I would also like to thank Bill Steele Sr. for being the welcoming committee into the chambers. So thank you. We are here representing the Salish Kootenai College Graduate Division. And what we'd like to do for you today is present to you the two graduate programs which just started this last fall quarter. The first program that I will introduce to you will be the Master of Science in Natural Resource Management. And Dr. Rick Everett is the program department head for that. We have Doug Ruman here, who is the Dean of Education Division and will be presenting to you the Master of Education and Curriculum Instruction. That actually begins this summer quarter. And I'd also like to introduce to you Sierra Masila. She is the Graduate Student Success Coordinator for the Master of Science in Natural Resource Management. I am Elaine Frank. I am the Dean of the Graduate Division for the college. And just to give you a little bit of brief overview, again, we just started the master's program, the graduate division it was summer. Our first opening for students was the fall. The college has never had graduate division before, and so there was a lot of groundwork that needed to happen. There was a lot of fast movement, setting up applications and going through the process of reviewing applications and accepting students. So it's been a really fast and furious year. This year for the Master of Science in Natural Resource Management, we have had 5 students. We have currently 2 who are provisionally admitted. We're hoping to fully admit them in the fall. And we are still taking applications on that until May 13th. So we're getting applications in at this point, but we welcome, of course, more applications. For the Master of Education and Curriculum Instruction, our first cohort, it is cohort-based. That closed on, that date is actually closed back in February 7th, I believe. And we currently have 20 students who are fully accepted and 2 provisionally. Those 2, one of them is just a matter of completing his bachelor's degree, which we fully anticipate he will, and the other has to do with the document they need in their file. Classes begin again for the Master of Education and Curriculum Instruction on June 13th. Both the graduate division moving forward, our intent is to not have any GRE exam requirements. It will strictly be by your application, your merit. And there's different parts to the graduate applications than there are with the undergraduate. The undergraduate, of course, is open entry for the college. The graduate division is by application and a review committee. With that said, I would like to go ahead and move on to the prime time, and we will start with Dr. Rick Everett.
Okay. And we'll see if this is going to wind up working. All right. So I am the program manager, also the principal investigator for the grant that's supporting this for the Master of Science in Natural Resources Management. What I'm going to wind up giving you guys is a brief history about how this developed. It's got a kind of an interesting convoluted story, and then what we're trying to actually offer as far as the degree goes. The program itself is going to lead to an award in the Master's of Science degree in Applied Disciplines in Natural Resource Management. That's going to wind up being forestry and wildland fire management, so I'm going to play to the strengths that we already have over there at the college, applied hydrology and wildlife and fisheries management. As you'll find out, we're being backstopped by a major university on some of this, so we're getting a lot of help in standing up and learning how to walk with these programs. This is designed that the degree can be completed using mostly at-distance educational methods, both synchronous and asynchronous. I'll get into that in a second about why we're doing that. And the program itself is leading to people either completing with a thesis or a project option. So not only they're going to have to do a certain amount of credits in the course, but they're also going to have to wind up proving in a capstone series that they can go ahead and professionally operate at a higher much higher level. So the creation of the program itself, this actually came about from a program submittal in what's called the National Science Foundation's Instructional Capacity Excellence in TCUP, which is a tribal colleges and university program. They have lots of cute acronyms. So this is actually TCUP Iced Tea. Worked with a couple of people in the Iced Tea program in trying to form this graduate degree in natural resources management. And what it consists of is coursework at SKC and the development of existing online courses and distance learning. And the University of Idaho has stepped in and helped us actually submit the proposal itself. But they're also intensely interested in making sure that education in Eastern Washington, Northern Idaho, and Western Montana, especially tribal circles, tend to is brought up to the par that they'd like to see it. So for the first couple of years of this program, University of Idaho is actually helping us with some of the background work that we wind up doing. We'll be developing additional courses that are going to be shared with University of Idaho. They're very intensively interested in developing both cultural and science courses with some of our faculty here and developing I call it a cross-pollination of different programs between here and there. We want to build up our upper division courses here while we're at it, strengthening our 300 and 400 level courses in all the coursework we wind up offering in the natural resources department. There's natural resources management curricula already at both institutions in forestry, hydrology, and wildlife. Over there, we're pretty much have been cut loose on their entire college natural resources as far as what kind of opportunities we can go ahead and use. Pretty much any of their online courses from the CNR division at the University of Idaho, we can use and transfer back here for the degree. This is, we are targeting a place-based educational opportunity in distance learning technologies. So this will allow students to achieve the master's degree with a minimal need to be present at, say, the Scootney College or University of Idaho, and I'll justify that in a second here. So in other words, let me translate it. NSF usually doesn't fund these kinds of programs, and they're intensely interested in seeing whether this kind of a program can be successful or not, because they know that tribal communities really have a hard time managing their resources, but they also want to improve the overall level of their community education and advance the academic qualifications of their members to be better adapted to different changing societal and environmental factors in the 21st century. More than once I've had Richard Jansen tapping me on the shoulder and going, when are you guys going to put together a program? Because I want more skilled people working for Department of Natural Resources. Hopefully I'm working fast enough for them. But attaining the master's degree for a lot of tribal community members is virtually impossible. They either have to travel, take time off from work, quit work entirely, or they don't have the funds and the necessary means to go ahead and study at that higher level. And this program is designed to go ahead and address that gap as with opportunities that are within the natural resources disciplines. So this is a nice little graphic that we put together for the proposal itself. It kind of shows the difficulty that a lot of people have. As you go from the top down, there's some different programs, but up in the upper left-hand corner, we've got on-ramping for Native students into associate or BS degrees. And this is kind of the idealized framework we want to be able to do with University of Idaho. They've got some other programs they'd like to be able to off-ramp from our program into their programs. There are barriers, family and community commitments. There's institutional systems that make it tough to join a program. Cost is a barrier. Ultimately, the barriers that are down here next to the bottom, the retention barrier, the different values barrier, the actually competition and completion barriers are kind of what we'd like to address in the program, and then allow off-ramping into either tribal and federal agencies, off-ramping into faculty positions, or off-ramp into tribal faculty positions. How are we going to wind up doing that? getting back up to the top there on the right, on-ramp for Native students into the STEM doctorate degrees. SKC is part of what's called the LSAMP Bridge to the Doctorate degree. That's a Louis Stoke AMP program. NSF, our program is going to kind of tie into that. So once somebody's done with this master's, they can either return to work where they started, or they can, if they so elect, they might have an opportunity to go ahead and pursue their doctorate at the University of Idaho. So the cooperators that we've got for this. The program itself was approved last year for performing at SKC by the WNCCU, that's our accrediting organization. Once that happened, then we were able to go ahead and start moving forward quite quickly. Until that happened, it was kind of this COVID swinging through slow molasses, trying to wait for things to get done. But once we were approved by the accrediting agency, then we've gone ahead and developed, right now we're probably about halfway into our course development. We're at 22 courses right now. We're going to shoot for about 45. We've identified the faculty positions that we're going to need to hire on this. We'll be hiring 2 additional faculty, and slowly but surely going ahead and opening up the program. We were able to scramble fast enough to actually get some applications and get 5 students started last fall. Like what Elaine was saying, we probably got 3 or 4 more that'll be joining us next fall in the program. The SKC is the degree awarding institution. I want to stress that. It's not University of Idaho, they're just helping. This is the degree that's going to wind up originating at CSKT College. That's what it's going to say on their diploma. There is a new graduate division for CSKT College. Here's our dean. There is a natural resources division that we're tapping into, and that's the new reorganization for forestry, wildlife, and hydrology. There's a new natural resources graduate program. That's what I'm program director of. We have our faculty from forestry, wildlife, and hydrology. That's a total of 7 or 8 people. We have about 13 or 14 faculty from University of Idaho and their CNR who are intensely interested in cooperating with us and teaching over here or teaching by distance over here, or having us help them develop curricula over there at Idaho. I got to give a nod to our Vice President for Institutional Effectiveness, Stacy Sherwin, who was one of the chief pushes on getting a lot of the paperwork through on this program. At University of Idaho, just to explain their role in this, they're kind of our backstopping institution for the first 2 or 3 years of the program itself. They're very interested in increasing capacity for their existing LSAMP Bridge to the Doctorate program. We've had a lot of help from the Dean for their University of Idaho Graduate Division, Dr. Jerry McMurtry, and especially Dr. Alistair Smith in their College of Natural Resources. He's been shifting around from their forestry department to their geography department and back and forth. They are providing for us for the first few years program and course development help, faculty cross-training and cultural education. We're going to train them. They're going to come over and train us. Online course use for their College of Natural Resources. I think there's approximately 68 courses that we're going to be able to have students avail themselves to in their online curricula that we can transfer back here. Facilities use is a biggie. Our students will essentially become their students. So they're going to wind up being able to use libraries, use designated laboratories. They're going to be able to go over there, visit. They'll be probably picked on a lot for internships, and on and on and on and on. And we'll also have online resource use, which includes the electronic library systems. So just some brief history, and then we can switch it over to Doug. This started back in 2014, 2015 as talks between me and a couple of other fire ecologists at University of Idaho talking about just swapping and sharing curricula. That kept on building and building until we started figuring out, okay, what about a degree option? What about University of Idaho helping SKC go ahead and develop a master's program. In 2018, after talking with NSF personnel, that's when we did the Teacup grant training. Did a little training for it, and then we started a whole lot of proposal development, and that's also when we sought board approval from this college board. In 2019, that was the final proposal development and submittal. Award funding was actually happening in 2020, but then, like I've noted before, COVID kind of slowed things down quite a bit. NSF wasn't able to get people here to visit and help with some of the initial setup. And that's also when we took the time to go ahead and submit our accreditation application with NWCCU. Last year, in April, we got accreditation by SKC by NWCCU. That was our green light to actually start developing everything. You really don't want to start developing anything until that accrediting agency has gone ahead and green light your program. So from April of last year until now, we've been scrambling to get courses developed, get them in the catalog, recruit our first batch of students, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now we've actually got a program that we've now got to go from conceptual to making it even more successful than it has been so far. So fall 2021 was admission of our first 5 graduate students, and fall 2022 will probably be up to almost twice that number as things are going. So to kind of wrap up the program requirements that the students need to do, it is a 60 quarter credits total. They have a core curriculum of 16 credits. It talks about graduate level research methodologies, communication, tribal natural resource topics. They have 35 elective credits. It can be from any combination depending on what their faculty advisor wants to do. We can have hydrologists, and that's actually what we're doing now with a couple of the students. We have got a couple of hydrology students learning things about like fire ecology, what happens when the hillsides burn up. And they'll have 32 additional credits for electives on those. And then they're expected to do a capstone course, which is going to wind up being either a thesis or a project, depending on how they want to wind up doing it. Thesis is a bit more research oriented. Project is a bit more practical or practicum oriented. So formal thesis or a non-research practical project is definitely required as the program capstone. So I think that's pretty much what I've got here. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and gamble that my next slide is for Doug, and I'll turn it over for him.
Do you want to just do all questions at the end, or do you want to entertain questions? Well, thank you very much for the time to be able to present to you today to council, and thank you, Chairman, and all council members. I'm going to give you a brief overview of our newest program at the college in the Division of Graduate Studies in collaboration with the Division of Education, and that's a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. My name is Doug Ruman. I'm the acting dean right now of the division. Just starting my 20th year at SKC. Been in teacher education the entire time. Prior to that, I was a teacher in the local schools here. This program began similar, I guess, to what Rick said. Our program conversations about this master's started about 5 years ago. And we didn't start it at SKC, actually. We had graduated quite a few students in the division over the years, and a lot of these students were spending a few years in the classroom teaching, and they wanted to take their teaching to the next level. They wanted to elevate their teaching to the next level. And so they've been asking us about a master's degree program at the college. A lot of our graduates really thrived at SKC and liked the learning environment that we have there, and were comfortable with it and wanted to choose SKC for their masters. There were we heard two different requests. One was this degree in CNI, which curriculum and instruction, which just means elevating your teaching skills. And the other that was requested of us was to become principals, school leaders. so that they could be change agents and decision makers in our local schools. And so we had to decide which one of those two directions we were going to take. And we had a large number of people who had asked us about, particularly with regard to literacy, and particularly with regard to teaching in culturally sustaining and revitalizing ways in school. So those were, that's what we ended up going with. So this is an unusual degree. Instead of starting in the fall and running through the regular academic calendar, this degree is targeted to in-service classroom teachers and teachers who are who have a minimum of 2 years working in the classroom, working with students. So in order for those folks to take advantage of a program like this, we need to deliver it in a way that they can continue to work, to continue to teach. And in fact, the big factor here is that these folks have to apply the research that they're doing in their classrooms. So it's an applied degree. And they have to have a group of students that they work with in order to be in the program. So we're starting it in June with a summer session, a 6-week intensive summer session at SKC face-to-face. And then starting in the school year and running through the entire 9-month school year, they will be doing action research in their classrooms with their students to explore interventions and teaching methodologies that they're learning about in their master's program. So it's very hands-on, very practical oriented degree. And then the second summer, following that school year, they return for another 6-week intensive session where the two different strands, which I'll get to in a moment, come back together and refine their research and then share out their research to the rest of the group. This degree is built in 2 different options or strands. As you see here, integrative Indigenous education is one of those strands, and the other is called literacy, equity, and excellence. The first strand, I have some information a little bit later on that'll help clarify what these are and how they're distinct from each other. But the first strand broadly centers on the inclusion of cultural content into existing curriculum and teaching in culturally sustaining and revitalizing ways, and the infusion of language and culture into the classroom. Some of the participants in this first IIE strand are traditional classroom teachers in public schools, like a 3rd grade teacher or something like that, or high school or even early childhood teachers. And some are not. Some in that strand work in language learning environments, or they might work for possibly the culture committee or in another, I guess you'd say, less traditional educational setting, but they still have learners that they're serving and they still are applying what they're learning in those settings. The literacy, equity, and excellence strand is basically a master's level reading program, reading and writing literacy development program with an emphasis on literature-based instruction and the incorporation of Native authors into the material that they're reading, and with attention to bias in children's literature and youth literature. So that's a quick overview of those 2 strands. Summer to summer, as I mentioned, and then during the school year, there are 8 credits in each of the fall, winter, and spring quarters. So there's 48 quarter credits or 32 semester credits, the equivalent would be. This designed for practicing educators who serve Native students predominantly, their families, and their communities. And this graphic here is a little confusing, but it does show the layout of the program, and you can see the 2 summer sessions that are like bookends, and then the fall, winter, and spring. The summer sessions are going to combine the 2 strands in many of their classes. They'll be doing work on a pervasive integration of culturally responsive, sustaining, and revitalizing pedagogy, ways of teaching, research-based methods, and it's an action research-based model. And action research is a little bit different in that it's really based on practical application right there with a group of people. And so they'll be exploring different kinds of interventions and model teaching units and constructs for how to teach in meaningful ways in those settings. And then they'll be taking student data and comparing pre and post data, and then making decisions about those interventions, whether they should keep going or not. They're actually, the students in this program are going to be doing multiple action research projects, not one just big one over the course of that school year. It's going to be a number of them as they go through. It might be 6, it might be up to 9 different action research projects that they'll do. You can see the delivery notes underneath the summer session team teaching model using existing instructors at the college. These are faculty, full-time faculty at SKC's Division of Education. 5 hours a day through those 6-week summer sessions. And then there's a little break in the middle of the summer. So it's pretty intensive, quite an investment of time for these teachers. During the 3 quarters throughout the school year, they'll be coming together several different times during the each of the quarters. I believe it's 3 weekend sessions, intensive sessions on Fridays and Saturdays, where they come back together in their strand and work on the action research that they're doing and sharing it out with each other. So they do that in the fall and the winter and the spring. And then in the following summer, they come back, and the at capstone experiences that they'll be writing the action research. One of the things that's going to be important in this delivery system is that they spend as much time thinking about what didn't work as they do thinking about what does work. We want them to select their most successful interventions and then share out about those. And so it's a 14-month degree, and again, perfectly suited for classroom teachers that are already working. A little bit more information on the 2 strands here. You can see here, if you want to take a moment to read the description for the IIE strand. The emphasis is on creating teachers' ability to create community-centered educational experiences with a real emphasis on the local tribes here. We will be having some students in this degree that represent other tribal communities from different parts of Montana, but the emphasis is going to be on the cultural practices here. A number of years ago, SKC's Division of Ed changed its science delivery system for its content classes to be built around the seasonal round of the local tribes here, as opposed to using a Western orientation to science. Instead of blocking out biology and earth sciences and physics and chemistry, those content classes were retooled to better represent the life ways of the Salish, Killspa, and Kasanka peoples here. And so all of those various scientific perspectives are all brought together in that series, Integrated Perspectives in Science for Educators. And a similar model will be applied in this graduate degree program. So you can see some of the key courses that are listed here. There'll be a lot of work done on what is action research, how is it designed, how is it applied. And there's a strong emphasis in both of these 2 strands on writing skills at the graduate level. So there'll be coursework specifically associated with writing at the graduate level. The literacy strand here, as you can see, emphasizes concepts, content literacy skills while deepening the understanding of context, including tribal communities. It's emphasizing the science of reading, explores neurological diversity in literacy learning, and leads to a state of Montana K-12 reading endorsement. So these are folks, many of these folks will already have their teaching licenses, but this will provide them with the means to get a K-12 reading endorsement added on to that license. And you can see some of the coursework that is in this strand as well. Here are some of the faculty that'll be teaching in these different strands. Dr. Walker Robbins and Dr. Munson will be primarily associated with the IIE strand, and Dr. Elser with the literacy strand. This is a quick glance at our implementation timeline. I kind of, rather than go back to the very beginning, I just sort of started here where we're at now. We've completed our application and screening. As Elaine mentioned, we have our approximately 20 plus students that we have our first cohort pretty much finalized at this point. We're still waiting on a couple other documents for people, but we're pretty much ready to go. And we'll be starting, as she said, on June 13th and running until late July. And we have the weekend intensive throughout the school year, and then next summer of 2023, we'll continue with that, finishing up with the first cohort at the end of July. We'll start our recruiting in fall of 2023. We don't want to have a overlap where we have two different cohorts studying the same time because of our faculty demands. So we'll be using the following year after one cohort ends, we'll be using that year to do recruitment and refining and changing our program, revising it around, making it better. And then we'll start with a new cohort the following summer. So there'll be an off year. And I guess the whole point of this degree is really to affect change in the education landscape in our community. We really want to provide an opportunity for teachers to learn in a deeper way what the community values are, to be able to inspire their students in new ways, and to be able to provide a more culturally relevant educational experience for their students. And we feel this is a long time in coming and something that's been really needed, and especially in our public schools, but all throughout our area for a long time now. As you can see in the second paragraph here, the success of Indigenous children and youth depends on educators' ability to create learning experiences that grow students using practices that integrate culture and language into academic disciplines. We hope that we'll elevate and empower educators with research-based, culturally revitalizing and sustaining teaching practices that help to decolonize learning environments. One of the things that's happened in the last couple of years, and then I'll finish up here, is that SKC's become known to be a place where teachers seek out professional development. A couple of years ago, we had a literacy, exploring bias in children's literature, particularly bias against Native Americans in children's literature workshop. We were anticipating about 20 to 25 teachers that would attend this. It was a summer program. We ended up with 80 different people. When the Ronan School District recently decided to change their reading curriculum, the teachers that were in that program went to their administrators and asked to involve Dr. Elser in the selection of their new program. And with her guidance and input, they selected a very different kind of reading program that was much more reflective of research-based best practices. And that was really gratifying. And that they're turning to SKC as a place for professional development is really inspiring for us. So with this degree, we're hoping to do more of that work. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. If you have questions regarding either of these two degree programs, we'd be happy to answer them.
Questions from council? I guess, Doug, I have one question for you. Your first cohort, can you give me any details of where they're what school they might be representing or what strand they're interested in?
Sure, we have, as I mentioned, as Elaine mentioned, I guess about 21 students that are confirmed, and then we have a few provisional. And the split is about down the middle. We have about the same number of students in each of the two strands, but Elaine might be able to speak more to some of the statistics of the students.
The makeup that we have for the students that have been accepted, we have 60% tribal enrolled applicants. And of those, a majority are actually enrolled Blackfeet. We do have, the second group is from the CSKT. Interestingly, we have teachers who graduated from the bachelor's program who are teaching, for example, over in Browning. And so they will be participating in the program. We had some great news earlier, say a couple months ago, where the Blackfeet School District has endorsed our program and is encouraging students to go to our program as opposed to University of Phoenix or University of Montana Western. So we have their support, and we're hoping, we have some local support. We're hoping to make that stronger. The nature of how the reservation is structured makes it different than Blackfeet, but our focus really is on CSKT.
Carol, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say what a shining light, just to have faculty and staff come over and present this to us. You know, we thought something was coming down the pike, but never really knew anymore. And now that it comes to the table, I just am really excited and happy to hear about all the collaboration with the other communities and other reservations. I mean, that's huge. And I just want to thank you. I can see why people like you guys as instructors, because you guys just caught me and I was like, wow, this is cool. So anyway, and Sierra I've known forever, and I know she's in an environmental degree, I believe, at one time. And so, yeah, just really happy about this. So thank you so much for coming over. And I don't think you have any action today, but you just wanted to come over and inform us. And it's good to see you also, Doctor, back at in the field of education. And yeah, so thank you so much for being the dean for this program.
Thank you, Carol.
Jennifer?
Thank you, Chairman McDonald. Yes, thank you for coming over today. I'm also glad to see, Elaine back. Sorry. Thank you to use your title. So yeah, I'm really glad the SKC is offering these master's degrees, and I hope it helps the local school districts close the achievement gap that they have with Native students, because they are underserving us. And I'm glad that there's something happening to address that. And one of the questions that I have for the ED program is, which CSKT tribal scholars did you consult with to develop your curriculum? Thank you.
We are currently meeting regularly with the Salish Kulispa Culture Committee. We have Dr. Walker Robbins and Dr. Munson have been meeting, I think, each Wednesday afternoon with the Culture Committee. They've also been working on developing curriculum with some other cultural practitioners in the Valley for the classes that they're going to be offering in the summer session, and are still in development of the courses that will be during the school year.
We're also relying on Michelle Mitchell's expertise in tribal higher education with her outreach to all the public schools to help get the word out as well.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm sorry.
Oh, how many of your instructors are tribal members from here?
Instructors for the master's program, for the education master's program?
Currently none.
Currently none.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Great work. Looking forward to a change.
Thank you.
Okay, legal department's up next. We're running a little behind. So I think we're gonna try to get some food in here, make it a working lunch if we can. As much as possible to hang on to y'all. Yeah, jerk chicken again? No. That was good though. I gotta say, it was really good. Brian, good morning. We need executive session?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll move into